I'm back from my vacation, back to see how everything's doing after being taken care of by my partner for 10 days. And I have to say, everything is looking very good. No surprises while I went away. There was some beautiful new growth. I got this gorgeous new monstera leaf, which we'll visit with shortly. I mostly had her take care of these plants, but the other plants in the room are fine too. I watered everything before I left, and some of these plants are pretty low light and didn't really need much care while I was away. They certainly didn't need to be watered. I did get this beautiful new leaf on my Monstera deliciosa. This is the most fenestrated leaf I've had yet. And in the background, one of the other pieces of growth in the pot has its first fenestration, so I'm very happy about that. And while I was away, this new leaf just popped up on the third bit of growth in the pot. So everything's going very strongly with this one. The Pilea peperomoides, which used to live upstairs in my partner's studio office, has come to live down here and really seems to be loving being under the grow lights. In fact, I think I had accidentally repositioned one of the grow lights to be directly on it while I was away, because the entire thing was facing straight into the grow light. I've turned it around, but you can sort of see that a lot of the leaves are kind of facing this way. Although even over the course of today, since I turned the plant around and moved the grow light off it, it's settled back to being slightly less directional, slightly more facing all directions. But yeah, you can see this was the direction of the grow light before. In the background behind that, very happy to see that my Path Wardii, the bud is going strong on that. So that was one of the ones that I wanted to check in on when I got back. For this terrarium, where I planted a lot of little jewel orchids, 4 of them are okay. The 5th one did get some root rot, but I chopped the stem on that where it was rotten, and it's in water propagating now, and I think you can already see that it's got very strong activity at the nodes, and it's already trying to shoot a new root out. It was already doing some rooting in the sphagnum, but I wanted to clean up the rot and make sure it was nice and healthy. The philodendron melanochrysum cutting that I had started trying to propagate, trying to get to root before I left, now has one long root on it, right down here. So it's not all the way there yet, but it has shown signs that it will root, and then I'll be able to transplant it. Maybe a few more weeks of rooting, I'm not really sure. There's no hurry. This Adansonii cutting I'd been trying to root in sphagnum, just to see if I could do that. And I'll be quite honest, it didn't seem to be working particularly well. It's got a stubby little start of a root, but nothing else. And the sphagnum was kind of an unpleasant texture and getting an unpleasant smell. So we've moved to water propagation on this, and I think it's got a pretty good chance. It's just one cutting, so I'm not sure what will come of it, but I think it'll be interesting to watch. One thing that I noticed when I got back from vacation was that there were a couple of plants that I just wasn't feeling the love for as much anymore. One of them was the Alocasia aslanii that I'd been trying to get back from the dead since January. I didn't throw it away. I didn't give up on it entirely. I did give it away to someone from next door. I put up a message and said, this has been very difficult for me, and it did try to die, but I did get it to root again, and I have repotted it, so if you want to take a chance, you should. And a lovely young person decided that they would like it. And then when I was getting ready to give it to them, I thought, you know, other than saying super bomb, I'm not really in love with the anthurium superbum that I got earlier maybe November from the farmer's market. Again, it just wasn't giving me much in terms of growth, and I know it's only just spring, but it was a little frustrating, and I didn't love the shape of the leaves, I didn't love the posture of the plant, and I've got all of these beautiful structural plants around, so I threw it in a box with the alocasia aslanii, and the person, lovely young person, was happy to take it and offered me raspberry canes from their backyard in exchange, but unfortunately we don't have the space to grow raspberries. I ordered this little baby while I was away, and it arrived today. It's a seedling anthurium clarinervium. Now this has been my biggest wishlist plant for about a year, and even as a seedling it was more than I usually want to spend on plants, but I'm looking forward to growing it up. I could have bought a larger one, but I just really couldn't bring myself to pay that kind of money for a plant. And also I felt like if something happened to that, and if it arrived with the big full leaves and then they fell off, I would be devastated. And I think in a way more that with this I've got more of a chance to bring it up from being quite a little plant to hopefully growing out into its full glory. I will say this one leaf looks pretty droopy, but it hasn't had time to acclimate, and I'm going to try and be really careful with acclimating it. This one is definitely not getting repotted anytime soon. I'm going to wait a few days before I water it. Keep checking that soil for the moisture, and otherwise just try to give it what it wants. Some light, some humidity. Pretty excited about it, because when it does get to its full size, it is glorious. And this is the first of that really sort of serious wishlist plant that I've got. I have to show off how well the Macotes petola is doing. It's huge now. It really has come on in leaps and bounds. And all its glittery, veiny, gorgeous self. I definitely planted this terrarium out to be a bit fuller looking now, with two different kinds of vine in it. And those have taken off well, and I popped a Syngonium mini pixie in the back, which I might pull out if it looks too crowded, but right now I'm enjoying the full look of it. So I'm really happy with how this one is carrying on. It hasn't been too long yet, so it's really hard to say, but I think it's doing well as a terrarium. Like I've said before, I don't really keep them as fully closed terraria. That would just give me anxiety. It is nice to be able to adjust how much humidity is in there and to let it get a little damper or drier depending on how the plants are looking. The Tradescantia Fantasy Venice, it's really interesting because as you can see, the plant has just pretty much evacuated itself over the side of the pot to sit where the window is, and you can see the full bright pink colouring that it's getting as a result of that. So I'm not sure, but I was thinking I might want to plant something else into the pot with it. I'm not sure what, but something that's sort of smaller leafed and clumpy and terrain looking in some way. I don't know, maybe some sort of miniature daisy? Because and obviously something with the lower light need, because good lord, it's just walked right over the side of the pot. It looks lovely, it makes a lovely silhouette, but I think it'd be fun to do something else with it. The Cebu Blue has settled in beautifully, and that didn't get watered while I was away, so I'll have to water it again soon, but it's a bit tricky because it's up so high. This didn't get watered while I was away, and it does feel pretty dry. The soil feels dry, the plant feels silky and luscious with all that bright green new growth. Look back there, look at that. It's very exciting. But the soil is dry, so that'll get watered sometime this week, probably tomorrow or Saturday. But it does, this parlour palm is really my easiest plant. It sits in almost no light and gets very little water and just keeps producing and producing and producing. Meanwhile, if I'm not careful, the mycans is going to start growing up the palm tree. It's sending a shoot out to explore over here to see what might be happening. I guess I would let it do that if it makes it over there. I try to train it around the hoop, but it's just not that interested in it. So I'm still working on that, but it's looking lovely and luxurious and huge compared to how it was when I got it. So I wish I had the wall space. There's a YouTuber, Plant Life in the Tropics, and she grows her micans up a wall and gets enormous hand-sized or larger than the size of her hands leaves, and I just think it's, and you know, she's trying to mature them so eventually they'll fenestrate. I want to do that, but for now it can just keep climbing up its little palm friend if it tries. I think it'd be interesting if it wanted to reach out to the sculpture behind it, but I'm not sure how to encourage that. You know, if there's a way, I'll find it. I put a hook on the wall for the philodendron Brazil. I've got some clear hooks coming because the white hook is a bit obnoxious, but I think I'm going to try and train that up to maybe train it around the mirror, because that would be kind of cool. The maidenhair is still looking at getting purged and still not dying. Just, I don't know what to say, but I think it's probably going to get purged pretty soon, because it's just like, you know, this has been going on for too long. Do we have to keep torturing each other this way? Could I just get a beautiful silver satin pothos, Scindapsus pictus, instead, and have that trailing and perhaps climbing up hooks on the wall? It's tempting, and I think, I don't know, I just feel like your days are numbered, honey. Definitely while I was away, I was thinking that I want to find a way to move this Calathea lancifolia out from its fairly secluded location. It's doing okay in terms of light, but it's so beautiful and you can hardly see it because of this amazing Oncidium orchid, which is huge and structural. So still thinking about that and thinking about where that would go. Thinking about popping another plant shelf up on this wall. I'll do a roundup with the orchids at some point, because fingers crossed, there's a lot of new growth, but it's too early to say yet who's going to bloom this year. So that will wait until we get any spikes at all showing up. Anyway, it's good to be back, and I hope that you've enjoyed just catching up with the plants.